Jamie Dimon is brilliant. He's one of the smartest people out there, but even the smartest people not always right. Because of DeFi and the experimentation that was done there, that has led JP Morgan to spend so much money into the blockchain effort.
Welcome, everybody, into another matchup in Crypto Project of the Year from Coinage, the only community-owned, award-winning media DAO steered by our NFT holders and backed by the co-founder of Netflix. I'm the host of Coinage, Zach Guzman, coming to you live from our Brooklyn studio, thanks in part to our latest sponsor, BitGo, helping investors and builders by offering seamless integration with exchanges and market makers to trade with quality execution from cold storage. With BitGo, provide the most secure asset solutions for your users and builders alike. Excited to be highlighting two projects today on the show. We've got Avalanche and we've got Sui, both represented here with me today. The president of Avalabs, John Wu, back on the show, as well as Miston Labs CEO Evan Cheng here with us as well. Guys, I appreciate you coming on, and congrats to you both for leading projects that have been nominated by our community as Crypto's Projects of the Year. And John, you've been on before. You've been on many times. Of course, you're also a Coinage NFT holder, so maybe we let Evan go first this time, because we'll start off with a little bit of back and forth in terms of what each project's up to, what they've been doing this year, what they're all about, and then have a conversation and let our community consider who moves forward in Crypto's Project of the Year celebration. And Evan, Sui's been up to a lot. It might be the newest participant in all of this because you guys only launched this year, but a lot to discuss in terms of the early days, what you guys have been building at Sui. So why don't you just give us a little explainer about what Sui's all about?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Sui is a unique new layer one that launched in May this year. So we've been doing a lot of work to grow the ecosystem, grow the community. So we have done a few things, right? We have sort of done kind of growth campaign. You see the TPS going into this really high number. I believe is still the highest per day TPS ever for any blockchain. We have been growing our TVO very aggressively, and it's not just TVO. Right now, it's already up to 175 million, and we also have a lot of uncharted transactions using these TVO. So that shows it's kind of an early part of market fit. It's already happening. Both our TVO and DeFi transaction numbers are easily in the top 20 already, among the highest in non-EVM chains. And then we have so many exciting new product partners are actively building projects. Gaming, right? We already announced we have 3 of the top 4 Korean public gaming company, named Marble, NCSoft, and more recently are partners of ours. They are all choosing Sui to build their Web3 properties, and super excited about it. And lots of other things like partner like Ripple Racing and so on and so forth. Yeah, we're off to a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of overlap, by the way, in terms of the focus on gaming for layer ones in some of the other layer ones that we've hosted in this celebration, including Algorand, focusing on gaming and DeFi as well. And John, you and I have discussed gaming and how big that is for Avalanche before, but also don't want to overlook everything else that you guys are up to as well in kind of, being one of the layer ones that have been around a little bit longer than some of the other players in the space.
Well, that's right. We've been around for about 4 years now, and it's been an incredible journey. What distinguishes Avalanche, the chain, is, frankly, it's the technology. The technology is incredible, extremely fast, instant finality, scalable, EVM compatible. And the architecture allows it to have others create what we call subnets, which is basically, think of it as a sovereign app chain that anyone can build on top of it and have their own, effectively, blockchain, either attached to the permissionless world or do it with special requirements like a traditional finance would, and have it a more private experience. What else makes Avalabs great is its people, frankly. Areas like business development and other areas, it goes without saying the engineers are top notch, but we've had a lot of great partnerships in many industries, not just gaming, but institutional finance. We call it OnFi, as well as DeFi and crypto native, Recently, we've got our NFT area really going, and the subnet areas where gaming and traditional publishers, AAA publishers, have found it very exciting to launch things, as you noted. And I also want to say, Evan, congratulations for launching this year. I remember back in the day how exciting that was, and how a lot of work that must have been as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think that's
Yes,
one of the
Lord.
things. That's one of the things that I've increasingly come to appreciate as a founder in the space as well, is that there is no playbook for anyone who's building in Web3. I think, and we would probably all agree with that, is that everyone's kind of trying to figure out exactly what are the most important metrics, and that's why I'm excited to have you guys on, because you guys probably know better than anybody else, what you're looking for in terms of growth. And I think one of the other similarities is, we talk so much about it being a US-centric story, but really Web3 is a global story. John, when I saw you last at the Cornell Blockchain Tech Conference, it was all about a lot of focus on Asia Pacific. Evan, I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think I've seen some of the similarity kind of come through in the enthusiasm going now over there. I mean, what have you seen in your early days, Evan, when it comes to users and I guess the opportunities that exist for new L1s?
Yeah, I mean, there's not one answer, right? I mean, definitely Asia Pacific, APAC has a lot of interest in crypto, and we're not talking about trading, right? So if you're talking about builders or established company actually, realize the need to use decentralized technology, that's really, really happening in the gaming in the consumer application space, and that is starting in Asia. Gaming is really, really interesting because back in the days, free to play was seen as this horrible new experiment. How can you give away things for free, right? You should be selling packaged goods, right? That was this outrage. And that came out of Asia. It came out of Korea. People understand what's needed to change the kind of business model, distribution model. And we're seeing the same thing again. The same kind of leaders in gaming in Southeast Asia, I mean in APAC and in that part of the world are starting this again. They are experimenting and doing really, really interesting things. So absolutely, Asia is a very, very important place for anybody in the space. Of course, US is still like where a lot of developers are, a lot of talents is. When as difficult as the regulatory environment is kind of unclear and it's very difficult here, but you cannot kind of ignore the US and the great developer ecosystem here.
Yeah, John, how have you looked at that too? Because obviously we're going to get into some of the advancements that you've made in terms of tokenized securities with an emphasis here on the US with Republic, which I think is huge, and maybe some of the other things you've been working on with traditional financial players. But how do you look at maybe straggling, I guess, both markets, not taking your eye off the US, but also looking to Asia?
Right. Well, we're lucky that we've been around a little bit longer, so we have strong teams in both geographies. But what Evan said about a slightly more clear regulatory environment in Asia, as well as probably a penchant to experiment more with new technologies in the gaming space, especially, are key reasons why Asia has been taking off for Labs and Avalanche. I have to say, it's not just one region. It's Korea, it's Japan, it's even Southeast Asia, what we're seeing in Vietnam and all those areas there. So it's pretty exciting. And we're talking about real large companies learning real business use cases in decentralized web. We're working with SK. In Japan, we're working with Gree, which is a publicly traded gaming company. And then there's a whole bunch of other gaming companies in Korea that we're talking to as well. So I think it's very exciting. We're lucky we have a lot of good people in both geographies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, to Evan's point in terms of the question marks around the U.S. regulatory space, I guess it does maybe weigh on what happened in 2023. So part of this, in terms of highlighting everything, is looking back on accomplishments. And again, launching, as John said, huge ups to the Miston Labs and Sui team for getting out the door earlier here in 2023. John, I mean, when you think about, I guess, the Avalanche's big accomplishments this year, obviously, as I said, teaming up with the Republic to do tokenized securities seems to be the big emphasis right now. I don't want to mischaracterize what Avalanche is doing, but it does seem like a lot of the business development pieces are maybe a priority, or at least were a priority this year.
No, like I said, tech as well as business development, but both priorities. We're going to talk about Republic, great partners, and it's very exciting what we're doing with the R note and tokenizing that. It's something we've been doing for a while. But in general, if you want to talk about 2023, call it accomplishments or things that we're excited about, and remember, like most of 2023, people said we were in dead of winter for the whole space. But ironically, for people who've been building many accomplishments. Obviously, Nissan Labs and Sui, they launched a very successful fanfare for us. I mean, our addresses were doubled, our transactions almost doubled over the year versus 2022. So, builders continue to build, developers continue to come, and on the partnership side, if you will, for the labs, institutional finance. We recently did a great proof of concept in the Singapore area with the sandbox of MAS with Apollo, JP Morgan, a separate one with Citi, and recently on the institutional side, with Republic. Great partners with us, always forward thinking. They have probably one of the largest, call it Rolodexes, if you will, for the older people on this call, of accredited investors.
Yeah.
So they have basically this effectively ability to invest in private securities, private funds, and the fact that you can tokenize it and put it on Avalanche makes it a far easier experience for potential accredited investors to invest in all of these hard to find things. So that's a super
Yeah.
exciting thing that we did.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to kind of start to see, some of these more established players or people who want to experiment with secure. It's always like, you're going to stay away from it. But some of this tokenization of real world assets starts to get interesting. And Evan, on your side, I mean, I don't want to overlook some of the metrics. Last time you were on, we were talking about kind of comparing some of the metrics. Obviously, we've talked about what's made Sui unique. When you look at $100 million bridged in USDC over earlier this month, I mean, what are the metrics that you're starting to see in the early signs of where the focus will be?
I mean, DeFi is almost like just like an unstoppable force right now. On Sui, it's growing leaps and bounds, and this is even before we have native stablecoin. Imagine when we do have the native stablecoin coming to the platform, it really will go boom. But at the same time, right, the most important thing for us at this stage is building the right technology, building the right platform to make sure the developer, the product builders can do their job easily, right? It really, really is very, very difficult to build consumer-grade products using blockchain, using Web3 technology. And that's a lot of focus. We want to solve that problem. You may have seen ZK logging, ZK send. Unilateral payment is a lot more than just having a blockchain sending things around, right? It's about the onboarding experience, about, how do you cash out? If you have this flow require somebody else to create a wallet and address and send it to you, right? You're adding a bunch of friction. Same thing on a lot of technology on the tokenization side. One of the things we saw, right, in 2022 and 2023 is NFT markets kind of like having trouble. And a lot of come from the issue is, how do you enforce royalty for secondary trading, right? That goes against how blockchains is all about. This autonomy, right? Enforcement rules, right? Our approach is very, very different. We have a kiosk kind of standard. There are enforced rules, transfer rules, payments, secondary payment, sign off with regulators or anything you want to add, in your transfer rule, and there is no way to circumvent that. Same thing, we just recently released the closed circuit token standard. Same thing, right? We take a very, very different approach from everybody else, including Avalanche. We don't do subnet because we do believe there's one ledger. You want to have shared liquidity on that, and we don't want the fragmentation. So instead, we let software enforce rules. We let smart contract enforce rules. If you want regulators to sign off, you want to enforce privacy rules, you want to enforce anything on the regulatory front or compliance side, you can encode that rule. So very, very different approach, and we're seeing very, very great response on that as well. So TLDR, we're just building. We continue to build. We continue to grow.
Yeah, Evan mentioned subnets there, so let's get into that too, John, because I think that is, when you start to differentiate projects and some of the tools that are being used by developers, subnet seems to be, as it has been for maybe a year or so plus, maybe, what you guys at Avalanche have been really stressing when it comes to maybe working with some of the bigger tech giants and smaller players too, I guess. But what has I guess what are the things you point to in terms of starting to see product market fit with subnets on Avalanche?
Well, I mean, first I'll point to the numbers. There's 14 live ones going. There's about 50 in testnet, and there's at least 50 in the pipeline from a business development perspective that's already signed but not in testnet yet. So there's a lot of activity. That's the number justify that. I think it's true that Miston Labs or Sui has a lot of high transaction TPS. A lot of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, using some variation of a sharding technique allows you to have a lot of that transaction TPS, if you will. The underlying Avalanche chain is already very good with the TPS and the throughput, but frankly, the subnet construct increases the TPS and allows more composability for whoever's building on top of Avalanche to flex to the level of TPS, level of security, and other things to customize it for their desired needs, whether it's for an institutional finance type of player that requires a more closed network and very strict KYC AML accreditation, or if it's a gaming company that cares more about fast fast and higher TPS. It gives them a freedom for flexing and for customizing the chain to their preference.
Yeah, and Evan, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I also have been noticing kind of the way that you've also worked with Google and Twitch when it comes to adoption to kind of maybe, I guess, make it easier for people to start using some of what Sui offers. Don't know if you have anything to add to that piece.
Yeah, I mean, like my background and my co-founder's background is all about consumer products and developer platform to enable developer to build consumer product. Even our experience at Facebook building DM teach us a lot, right? Just having a blockchain in a lot of ways is insufficient, right? The end-to-end product journey is far more complex, and blockchain serve a lot of purpose, but it's not sufficient. So, to us, right, we take the approach, blockchain's infrastructure and bandwidth, right, if you would, capacity should be unlimited. Basically, if you have increased demand, then you should increase capacity, and you should provide predictability. So you know exactly how much you're going to pay. You know exactly, the infrastructure is not going to ever run out of bandwidth. So we take that approach. So we kind of shifting a lot of focus these days onto latency, because that's essential for consumer experience. When you do anything on your phone, the consumer product experience these days instant. That's what consumer demand. So on the technology side, we're shifting a lot of focus on, be best class and really, really, remove that barrier entry, right? We have a partner called Bluefin, right, using our technology. I think this is a derivative DEX, right? They came over from Arbitron, and now we already flipped Arbitron volume. They're doing like several hundred millions per day in volume among the top kind of the DEX derivative DEX out there. And why they came over? Well, it's because of low fee, predictable fee, and also this instant kind of a confirmation. The optimistic confirmation is in the 28 millisecond range, right? And like actual, when you go through the fast pass, round trip for the transaction settlement is 500 millisecond. Like we're really, really proud of that. And this enabled them to build like new kind of experience, and that's just not possible elsewhere. So we're seeing more and more of these kind of development happening, and we just continue to push on the technology front.
We're throwing a lot of numbers at our listeners today in terms of some of the technicalities between the projects, which I appreciate as always. Of course, there's no exact set of grading mechanisms for crowning a crypto project of the year, but we got 16 projects that are featured in this. Again, not just all layer ones, some decentralized compute solutions, some decentralized storage solutions. It's a bit of everything, really. And everyone in our community who has a Coinage NFT can go to coinage.media/vote to weigh in on the crypto project of the year. And John, one of the other things that we talk about...
I think you should wait till March and March Madness to actually create this grid here. And
listen, we got metrics, John. We got to meet the metrics. It's how it goes, but we might revisit it in March.
Yeah,
but I mean...
Your lineup is not right. I mean, this should be the final, right? This is not the first round. What's going on there? It's fixed. It's fixed.
Listen,
Come on.
seating is very difficult. All right, I
We're,
appreciate
we're,
the
all,
feedback.
we're only
John's an
7 months
NFT
old.
holder. John can tell me all these things. I got to listen to him by law, so I appreciate the feedback. That's
Evan,
how we work.
I hear your point. 7 months ago, it's hard to accumulate the numbers, but I will say another thing. I think in crypto, everyone wants to compete one with the other. Reality is you need everyone on that chart to bring more people into this space. And we believe in interoperability, and we believe in creating extensible and composable technology so that it's easier for developers to actually code in this space because it's not easy. I mean, we on the tech side last year, we did a lot of things. There's one thing we call Firewood. Basically, that is creating a database that databases are not set up for blockchain technology. So, Firewood is going to enable that more customized for blockchain technology. We're talking about, Hyper SDK is another thing we created so that, again, so people can plug into the blockchain space a lot easier. Another great accomplishment, I think, from the tech side we had last year, what we call AWM, warp messaging, to make things more messaging across subnets and for other things more faster. So it's a way to get interoperability going, and we need connections to all those other players on that chart there.
Here's a question for you, John. Actually, I'm kind of curious, right? Because you made the mention that you've been around longer than what Evan and team are working on, and obviously the Facebook DM background we've covered on the show before. I'm curious if you think there's any difference if you would go back to the early days. Now I'm fostering a cross convo between you both. The ideas of maybe the difference of creating an L1 in today's world as Bitcoin's crossing 40K versus maybe when Avalanche started. If the metrics that matter would be any different today.
Well, the problem with the metrics, frankly, is the standard of the unit. And a lot of different people calculate things differently. So it's confusing as to if it's a real apples to apples comparison. But I think what we did well and what Evan and his team is doing well is, first, a big emphasis on trying to build the best tech possible. It's so early, the technology has to be really good. The second thing is you talked about this earlier, Zach. This is in terms of people. There is no specific roadmap playbook. It's about adapting, iterating. However, we focused on bringing people on who are experienced in something, have a good framework and a track record of accomplishment, and then also looking that they have enough of a flexible mind so that, the problem with having experienced people is they're very inflexible. And unlike a Web 2 startup where there's a specific problem and you're trying to create a solution, in this space, it's a platform. And you need the community to guide you towards where it should be in terms of the solutions.
Yeah, and Evan, we highlighted before, I guess, the differences and similarities between what you guys are building at Sui and Aptos, both coming from, I guess, the Facebook background, and we highlighted that already. But I am curious if there were other kind of playbooks that you saw early on, maybe Avalanche could have been one of them, that you maybe said, hey, look, I know it's not set in stone that whatever plan works best, but these are maybe the ones we should emulate.
Well, our playbook is do the hardest thing. Honestly, right? We could have come out first and kind of use the DN core code base to build a layer one, but because of our experience, we want to do something more ambitious. Right? Time will tell if our choice was right. We'll feel very confident about it. Our playbook goal is to really leverage our past experience to enable developer to build consumer grade product. That experience, right? Just give you a quick, example. Well, at Facebook, right, in the DM project, we try to do unilateral payments, right? Sending payment in emerging markets, for example, you cannot expect the recipient to have a crypto wallet and it's linked to their bank account. They know how to cash out. How do you do this, right? You want to do the kind of experiences like, well, here's a cashier check, almost like a money order. Here you go to your local market and cash out. Right. And to do that actually takes a ton of very, very complex technology. And these are the things that we're focusing on. In a lot of ways, it's almost like a scalable, high performance blockchain, sort of like table stake, right? I believe the technology will continue to improve by all the players here. And that at some point in time, we're just going to stop talking about your TPS and your whatever. And these are just given. You have a blockchain that can support any use case, right? But we want to move on to some of the other complexities here, right? So I'm just gonna actually posting a link here in the chat, and this is like allow you to claim a couple Sui without you even having to create a Sui account, right? John,
well, we might have to share that. Yeah, he's bribing here. Evan's bribing our community. This is nice.
It's a demo, so
I like this.
Here. Let me just
like.
send
I don't know if we can actually
post
post it right now, but I do like this. This is what I like. I will share it in the community afterwards.
Well, here is, if you don't have Sui already, here's a chance to claim a couple of Sui, get the experience, right? This kind of product experience is what we are all about. You cannot expect consumers, you cannot expect my mom, your grandfather to like diddle with like wallets and like save the recovery seeds and figuring out all that complexity, right? You want that seamless experience. If you ask them to buy some token for gas, it's like what are you talking about, right? So in a lot of ways, we want to move towards the next phase, right? Commercialization, consumerization of the space is what flow all boats, right? We all benefit from having consumers, hundreds of millions of consumer benefit from the technology. Ultimately, that's what we are about.
And John, I am curious. By the way, first of all, we're gonna make sure that our community members, if there are tokens to claim, we're gonna make sure that happens, because as a DAO, it's nice to be able to do this to where it goes into our little community wallet and we can handle it that way. But John, when we talk about, I guess, maybe some of that, right, in terms of the commercialization and use cases of this, obviously building a subnet for kind of an existing tech company is very different than, I guess, kind of enabling games to use subnets to where their end users have the benefits of some of the skins in games. I mean, how have you seen that evolve in what's been built in the space to make it, I guess, way easier for people relative to just a couple of years ago?
Well, I mean, it's still not easy, but the infrastructure has definitely improved. The tools have improved. Like we talked about all the stuff that we've been doing to make it easier to deploy in the space. But also, I think one thing that we've set up at Ava Labs is a team called Ava Cloud. And they are kind of like Red Hat was to Linux. They enable enterprises to actually integrate, and it's far more, call it white glove type service if you choose that in order to deploy. I mean, it's not just also the integration, but it's also we have a strong business development team to help you with figuring out token economics and really have good, strong discussions about what kind of business use cases is what you're trying to go after, and then therefore develop, make the technology to work for that business use case.
Can I ask you about that too, though? When you talk about white gloves, and I'll use an example that Avalanche, is being used. There was the idea of Onyx, JP Morgan, leveraging Avalanche for their use case, and that confuses me because you got Jamie Dimon out there saying he'd shut down Bitcoin, and the crypto continues to hammer crypto, but at the same time he's using Avalanche. So I don't know if you had a reaction to that.
Well, I mean, listen, Jamie Dimon is brilliant. He's one of the smartest people out there, but even the smartest people are not always right. And I think he's, been on that same belief for a long time. And I think he really is referring to just the crypto asset class. JP Morgan is huge into research and deploying blockchain technology. And as far as that JP Morgan thing that we were doing with them was Apollo was included. It's really cool because it's creating tokenizing assets, and it's making private and public chains interoperable. And it's also, as Christine Moy from Apollo said, the benefit of this is you're going to take 3,000 different processes and reduce it to one automated one and save 20% of fees. So that's super exciting. And what that allows is for individual wealth managers out there in the future to be able to redeem, rebalance, tweak their portfolios with alternatives. Basically private securities, private funds, et cetera. That is very hard to do. And part of the reason why the alternative investment universe, the funds, are not a bigger portion of portfolios around the world in terms of sovereigns, endowments, and wealth managers, because there's a discount for the illiquid aspect of it. So It's kind of like a bank with tier 1 capital, tier 2 capital. So if blockchain and crypto and Avalanche can help Apollo, JP Morgan tokenize some of these alternatives, it will allow the end user actually to have more access to some of the highest returning products that are out there.
Yeah.
It's great.
And maybe hopefully a little bit more recognition for some of the stuff that crypto is bringing in, not just constantly cast aside as being used for criminals and crime. You know, you hate to see it constantly repeated all the time.
I mean, Larry Fink has already figured that out. 6 years ago, he said crypto was an index for fraud, and most recently, he said it's the asset class is the index for, I think, quality.
Yes, there's a flight to quality now is what he was characterizing that move to. So it has been interesting to see the evolution of all these things. And again, I think it's taken some time, but we're here now. And as we're turning the page into 2024, Evan, aside from the idea, which by the way, we are again going to share this link to everyone in the Coinage community. So well done on the bribe potential here. But the other thing that people like is alpha. Alpha leaks are always very good. So when you look ahead to 2024 in terms of what Sui is going to be building, or the things you're most bullish on to continue the momentum into 2024, what has you most excited?
Look, I mean, I can't wait to see these consumer grade products that show up on our platform. There's a few then that everybody would know. They would say, wait, this is the kind of experience. This is what you've been talking about, Web3. Frankly, a lot of people don't know that, right? People outside of this industry don't know that. And we believe that will be the moment when they finally realize why this is important. Like for myself, right? It's like I've been slaving away building the Sui and building the company for so long. It's great to point to something. It's like, go play this, go use this, and you benefit from this. It's not just that, right? It's not just like big established company then bringing the titles over. It's like this upstart startups, right? We have one that's using AI in a way and crypto. Everybody's been talking about it for a while, right? Buzzwords, but it's actually solving a real problem of shared resource in a way that has never been done. It is just incredibly exciting. And they already have like hundreds of thousands of people sign up. Like we just can't wait for them to show up on our platform in Q1 next year. And I think people's minds are going to get blown. And at the same time, we
Setting a
continue
very
to
high
push.
bar. It's setting a very high bar. My mind's been blown a few times sometimes, and
Well,
we'll see
I
what
mean,
happens.
if you don't go for your best, what's the point of building something, right? It's
That
like
is very true.
why?
That is very true. And you made an interesting point there when it comes to in terms of decentralization of builders. Once the technology is out there, what do people do with it? And John, I think I recently saw Avalanche introducing Avalanche community proposals. This idea of maybe leaning more into decentralization of governance. Some people comparing it to the way that other projects have tried to decentralize and moving some of the governance around. I mean, what's the goal with that? And maybe anything unique that people looking at Avalanche should understand about it?
Yeah, that was brought up through the community, and I think what you're referring to is will really help the explosion of subnets. So the community is in the middle of proposing things where the $2,000, 2,000 of Vox, the stake in terms of a subnet, will be reduced or changed, and then basically using the subnet and having it to validate the main chain will also have some changes. I think that's very interesting because the community is bringing it up. That will lead to, frankly, what I think is going to be just like a huge explosion of even more subnets coming. And then in the very near future, we talked about earlier where there's already 14 live and about 50 in testnet and a whole bunch out still in work in process. Of the
Yep.
50, there's a whole bunch. And I know everyone's talking about, gaming earlier. They've been big on the gaming side as well. We're really excited about two that's going to go on the mainnet very soon in the gaming area. They're called Shrapnel and Gonzilla. I mean, Gonzilla is a former AAA publishing guys. They've have done games that are basically, generated $1 billion of revenue and over 100 million of users in the past. And for this game, I think they raised something like $70-80 million to have a high quality game. And that's going to launch on Avalanche Subnet. Another one, it's another first person shooter game, Shrapnel. Similarly, they've raised $40 million to create unbelievable game. And they're going to deploy things on Avalanche Subnet as well. So those two areas are just very, very, those two games and that gaming area is super exciting. And I think for that usage case, this year next year in 2024, one of us is going to have one of these huge games that really brings a lot more people into the whole entire crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. I mean, I don't know how much gaming spills over into people actually buying any of the assets that are powering the experiences, but I suppose it doesn't necessarily need to work that way. Anyways, as long as it
It
all
doesn't have to.
works.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, right? Remember, game developers, they build games, right? They entertain, they build community. That's what's about, right? We want to enable them to do that. It's not necessarily game fight, so to speak. You don't actually necessarily have to trade your asset in game, although it could happen, right? That's one in many, right? I think, a lot of the misconception about blockchains and Web3 is all comes down to asset, all comes to trading, all comes to speculation. No, it's not, right? It's about the entire customer journey. It's about how do you incentivize users to, to use your product, right? You royalty, right, point, and how do you engage them so they don't leave your platform? It's a lot of things in that wrong, right? It's not just gaming, it's commerce and everything. Like we're super excited too. I agree with John. Like there will be some pretty big successful games, and that will change the perception about gaming and blockchain. Right now, I would say a lot of mainstream gaming media or gaming press, a lot of people are very very anti Web3 gaming is because they see this is yet another way to extract money out of them. But
Yeah.
yet, right, we have these builders. Actually, they know how to build great games, and they want to utilize the blockchain in a way to make their games better. And that's what's about, right? We already, like in October, we had over 50 games that signed up to launch on Sui. Right now, the number is in the 60s and growing day by day. And we're super excited to see, right? Shrapnel, everybody knows about them. They've been building for a while. Super exciting. But also, kind of paying attention to other games that you may not have heard about. We have some brands. It's like, wait, that's using blockchain. That's going to come, and these are, from brands that you are
It only
interacting.
took us a few. It only took us a few years to get there too. I mean, I'm talking about like
No,
if the
no,
gaming piece had been there, and now
yeah,
we're finally seeing them come out because all that stuff takes time.
it's
So yeah, it
coming.
does take
It's
time.
coming. Yeah,
In the
it's
To
same
wrap
vein
up,
of what Evan said, and bringing more people into the community, and gamers know how to create community.
yeah,
Um, Jamie Dimon can say what he wants about the crypto asset class because of DeFi or whatever, but it was because of DeFi and the experimentation that was done there that has led JP Morgan to spend so much money into the blockchain effort. So what people learn from there, regardless of what you think of DeFi, has what's led to all this real business use case today.
yeah. So it kind of comes full circle in an unexpected way. So I would say that both of you, I think, are right on that front. To wrap up, though, as we said, we were going to open this conversation with figuring out a little bit more about what makes Sui and Avalanche unique. I think we accomplished both of those things. John, last time you were on too, I think it was a bold prediction back then when Bitcoin looked like it wasn't doing anything good and it was the deepest part of the bear. And you said, look, we're going to come back from this. Everything's fine. Look at the numbers that matter, which isn't the price, but what's happening on the back end. Before we wrap, I'll give you both one opportunity to maybe throw out one bold prediction. Doesn't need to be related to your project specifically, but what you're looking for next year. And John, since you're 1 for 1, I'll let you go first.
I thought it was 2 for 2 every time I come on.
You're right. You're 2 for 2. I'll give you that.
Well, listen, I mean, I base everything based on the fundamentals of what I see in terms of the operations and the partnerships we have. I believe Brevin Howard's research said that last year there was more stable coins that settled on chain in general, the whole ecosystem. And based on the activity in the stable coin stuff that we're seeing and it's in the space, what Brevin Howard said was there was as much stable coins settled as there is that goes to a Visa network in 1 year. And I think in next year in 2024, there will be as much settlement through stablecoins on chain collectively as there will be in both Visa and MasterCard in 2024.
Okay, that's that. I mean, listen, I like to see it, and obviously, I think that plays heavily into the idea of TPS and needing a network to handle some of these transactions. Evan, I think that would probably be maybe one of the predictions that you would like to see come to fruition, perhaps. But I'll let you also throw out a bold prediction for 2024.
Oh, only one, right? I mean, number one is I'm sure the Swedes and our partner is going to blow everybody's mind. But the reality is, right, the one prediction I'm very confident in is the commercialization, the consumerization, the kind of application that use blockchain using Sui that is going to be on people's phone. It's going to be something that the market, the mass market is going to be using. Whether they care about its blockchain-based products or not, it doesn't really matter in a lot of ways. But I predict that it is absolutely going to happen in 2024. And that's going to change a lot, right? It's going to change the mainstream narrative about, Web3, about crypto, about blockchain.
Yeah.
And that's a prediction I'm very, very confident and I can stand behind.
All right. Well, we'll see how it all plays out next year. Obviously, you set the bar high with what's coming in Q1, and you set the bar, I suppose, high too. We're going to share the link with our community members as well for Sui out there. Evan, John, I appreciate you both coming back on. The vote will be live soon at coinage.media for people to learn more about Crypto Project of the Year and eventually crown our champion. For Evan, for John, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Zach Guzman signing off from our Brooklyn studios in New York City. Thanks again for listening, everybody. We'll see you soon.